Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Today we embark on a journey into the life of one of the most controversial, admired, and polarizing figures of our era, a man whose name is known in every corner of the world. To some, he is a visionary entrepreneur. To others, a divisive politician. But no matter where you stand, one truth remains. Donald J. Trump has etched his story into the pages of history. This is not simply a tale of politics, nor merely one of wealth. It is the story of a boy from Queens, New York, who dared to dream bigger than the world around him. A boy who grew up in the shadow of towering skyscrapers and told himself one day his name would shine across the skyline of Manhattan. He would succeed, he would stumble, he would rise again, and ultimately he would do something no one expected, become the 45th President of the United States. This is the story of ambition. This is the story of resilience. This is the story of Donald Trump. Donald John Trump was born on June 14, 1946, in Queens, New York City. He was the fourth of five children in a large, ambitious family. His father, Fred Trump, was already a well-established real estate developer, known for building affordable housing in Brooklyn and Queens. His mother, Mary Ann MacLeod Trump, came from a small village in Scotland, bringing with her a sense of discipline, resilience, and modesty. The Trumps were not poor. Far from it. Fred had built an empire of middle-class apartments, and the family lived in relative comfort. Yet Donald's childhood was not without its lessons. From a young age, he saw his father as a tough, hard-working businessman who demanded results. Fred Trump would take his son along on construction sites, showing him the world of bricks, steel, and deals. It was here that Donald first learned the value of ambition and the weight of expectations. But Donald was not like his siblings. While his brothers and sisters were more reserved, young Donald was bold, outspoken, and often rebellious. His energy was boundless, sometimes disruptive. He got into trouble at school, picked fights, and challenged authority. His parents realized that their son needed discipline, a structure strong enough to channel his fiery spirit. At just 13 years old, Donald was sent to the New York Military Academy. Many parents might have worried that such a move would break their child's spirit, but for Donald, it was the opposite. The academy gave him discipline, order, and a taste of leadership. He thrived in this environment, becoming a star athlete and even a student leader. For the first time, Donald began to understand that his energy could be transformed into drive, and his boldness into leadership. After finishing high school at the military academy, Donald Trump set his eyes on higher education. He began at Fordham University but soon transferred to one of the most prestigious business schools in the country, the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. Wharton was no ordinary place. It was a breeding ground for future business leaders, a competitive environment where only the best ideas survived. For Donald, it was the perfect training ground. He studied economics, but more importantly, he absorbed the art of ambition. He learned not just numbers, but the psychology of business, how to negotiate, how to project confidence, how to see opportunity where others saw risk. He graduated in 1968 with a degree in economics, and unlike many of his classmates who went into finance or corporate jobs, Donald had a different path in mind. He wasn't looking to join someone else's company. He wanted to build his own empire. After graduation, Donald joined his father's company, the Trump Organization. At first, it was modest compared to the empire Donald dreamed of. His father's business focused on middle-class apartments in Brooklyn and Queens. Solid, profitable, but not glamorous. But Donald had bigger ambitions. Manhattan. While Fred Trump was cautious, Donald saw the glittering skyline across the East River and knew that his destiny lay there. Manhattan was where reputations were made, where fortunes were built, and where the world would come to know his name. In the 1970s, Donald began to push the Trump Organization into new territory. His first major project was the renovation of the Commodore Hotel near Grand Central Terminal. The hotel was struggling, its glory days long gone, but Donald saw what others did not: potential. With bold negotiations, government tax breaks, and sheer confidence, he transformed the hotel into the Grand Hyatt, a gleaming symbol of revival. The project was a triumph. Donald Trump was no longer just Fred Trump's son. He was a rising star in New York real estate. His name began appearing in newspapers, his photo in magazines, and soon he would take the next step that would define his legacy, the creation of Trump Tower. In 1983 on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, Trump Tower opened its doors. A 58-story skyscraper of glass, steel, and luxury, it was more than just a building, it was a statement. This was Donald Trump announcing himself to the world. Trump Tower wasn't just offices and apartments. It was gold-trimmed escalators, luxury boutiques, and a lifestyle wrapped in marble and glass. For Donald, it was not just about building space. It was about building an image. The name Trump became a brand, a symbol of success, ambition, and excess. The media loved him. He was charming, brash, and unafraid of self-promotion. He gave interviews, appeared at glamorous parties, and quickly became one of New York's most recognizable figures. By the mid-1980s, Donald Trump was more than a businessman. He was a celebrity. But success came with risk. Donald didn't just build, he gambled. He expanded into casinos in Atlantic City, buying properties like the Trump Taj Mahal, the largest casino in the world at the time. At first, it seemed like another bold Trump victory, but the reality was harsher. The casinos faced financial trouble, debts piled up, and by the early 1990s, Donald Trump's empire was on the brink of collapse. For many, this would have been the end. But Donald had one thing that couldn't be measured on a balance sheet: resilience. He negotiated with banks, restructured his debts, and fought to keep his empire alive. The tabloids called it the fall of Trump, but Donald refused to accept defeat. By the mid-1990s, he was back, stronger, louder, and more determined than ever. If Trump Tower had made Donald a name in business, television made him a household name across America. In 2004, NBC launched The Apprentice, a reality show where contestants competed in business challenges. At the center of it all was Donald Trump, the boss, the judge, the star. Each week, millions tuned in to watch him make decisions, deliver lessons, and of course, utter the phrase that would become iconic: "You're fired." The show was a massive success. Suddenly, Donald Trump wasn't just a businessman in New York. He was in living rooms across the country. His image as a tough, no-nonsense leader was cemented in the minds of millions. And for Donald, it was more than entertainment. It was the perfect stage to prepare for his next chapter: politics. For years, Trump had toyed with the idea of running for president. Few took it seriously. To many, he was just a flashy businessman and TV star. But in 2015, he shocked the world. Standing in Trump Tower, he announced his candidacy for President of the United States. His campaign slogan, "Make America Great Again." The words struck a chord. Millions of Americans felt left behind by globalization, ignored by politicians, and tired of the status quo. Trump's message was simple, direct, and emotional. He promised jobs, security, and pride. And unlike polished politicians, he spoke in a raw, unfiltered way. The media mocked him, experts dismissed him, but the people listened. And in November 2016, Donald J. Trump achieved the unthinkable. He defeated Hillary Clinton and became the 45th President of the United States. January 20th, 2017. On a cold day in Washington, D.C., Donald J. Trump placed his hand on the Bible and took the oath of office. The boy from Queens, once dismissed as just a flashy businessman, was now the leader of the most powerful nation on earth. For some Americans, it was a moment of triumph. For others, it was a moment of fear. Trump's presidency began exactly as his campaign had: loud, divisive, and impossible to ignore. One of his first actions was to issue executive orders that signaled a new direction for America. He promised to put America first, a slogan that would become the heart of his administration. He withdrew the U.S. from the Paris Climate Agreement, renegotiated trade deals, and pushed for stricter immigration policies. His travel ban targeting several Muslim-majority countries sparked outrage and protests, but to his supporters, it was proof that he was keeping his word. On the economy, Trump's presidency oversaw tax cuts, deregulation, and a booming stock market, at least before the global pandemic. Unemployment rates fell to record lows, particularly among African American and Hispanic workers. Supporters pointed to these numbers as evidence that Trump was delivering results. Critics argued that his policies favored the wealthy and deepened inequality. But beyond the numbers, what defined Trump's presidency was conflict. He battled with the media, calling it the enemy of the people. He clashed with Democrats, even within his own party. His Twitter account became a weapon, a direct line from the Oval Office to millions of followers, bypassing traditional channels. Every tweet, every word became a headline. No modern president faced as much controversy as often as Donald Trump. In 2019, the House of Representatives impeached him for abuse of power and obstruction of Congress, relating to a phone call with the president of Ukraine. Trump denied wrongdoing, called it a witch hunt, and the Senate acquitted him. He became the third president in U.S. history to be impeached, and the first to survive it while maintaining such a strong base of support. But the storm did not end there. In 2021, after the turbulent election of 2020, Trump faced a second impeachment, this time for incitement of insurrection following the January 6th Capitol riot. Once again, he denied the charges, and once again, the Senate acquitted him. He became the only president in history to be impeached twice. To his critics, these events defined his presidency as chaotic, reckless, and dangerous. To his supporters, it was proof that the establishment feared him, that he was an outsider fighting against a corrupt system. In early 2020, the world changed. A virus spread across the globe, bringing fear, lockdowns, and uncertainty. COVID-19 became the ultimate test of Trump's leadership. His administration moved quickly to restrict travel and launch Operation Warp Speed, a program that accelerated the development of vaccines at record speed. But his handling of the crisis drew heavy criticism. He often downplayed the severity of the virus, clashed with scientists, and turned the pandemic into another political battlefield. For millions of Americans, the pandemic defined Trump's final year in office. Supporters praised his push to reopen the economy and deliver vaccines. Critics blamed him for misinformation and unnecessary deaths. November 2020. Donald Trump faced off against former Vice President Joe Biden. It was one of the most heated elections in American history, conducted in the shadow of the pandemic. Mail-in ballots surged, rallies turned into protests, and the country seemed more divided than ever. When the results came in, Joe Biden was declared the winner. But Donald Trump refused to concede. He claimed the election was stolen, launching legal challenges and rallying supporters around the cry of "Stop the Steal." The dispute culminated on January 6, 2021, when a mob of Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol. It was a shocking moment, broadcast live around the world. For many, it was the darkest day of his presidency. For his critics, it confirmed their worst fears about his leadership. For his supporters, it was a tragic but distorted narrative, proof in their eyes of how deeply people believed in his cause. On January 20th, 2021, Donald Trump left the White House, refusing to attend Biden's inauguration. It was the end of his first term, but not the end of his story. Most former presidents quietly fade into the background. Donald Trump did the opposite. From his home at Mar-a-Lago, he remained the most influential figure in the Republican Party. His endorsements shaped primaries, his rallies drew thousands, and his words continued to dominate headlines. Even out of office, Donald Trump commanded more attention than most active politicians. Rumors of a comeback began almost immediately. Could Trump run again in 2024? Could he win? For millions of Americans, the idea was not just possible, it was inevitable. Donald Trump's story is not one that fits neatly into categories of good or bad, success or failure. His legacy is complex, contradictory, and still unfolding. He redefined American politics, breaking every rule and expectation. He gave voice to millions who felt ignored, reshaped the Republican Party, and left a mark that no one can deny. At the same time, his presidency left deep divisions, controversies, and questions about the strength of American democracy. But beyond politics, Donald Trump remains what he has always been, a master of reinvention. From real estate to reality television, From bankruptcy to the White House, he has lived many lives in one. Each time the world counted him out, he came back. Each time he stumbled, he found a way to rise again. In the end, the story of Donald Trump is more than just the story of a man. It is the story of ambition without limits, of resilience in the face of failure, of controversy, triumph, and reinvention. For some, he will forever be a symbol of hope, proof that an outsider can shake the system and rise to the highest office in the land. For others, he will remain a warning, a figure who tested the boundaries of democracy and divided a nation. But whether you admire him or despise him, one thing is certain. Donald Trump changed the course of American history. From the streets of Queens to the golden towers of Manhattan, from the boardrooms of television studios to the Oval Office of the White House, his journey is unlike any other. And perhaps that is his greatest legacy, the reminder that in America, the improbable is always possible. This is the story of Donald Trump, the boy who dreamed big, the man who refused to quit, and the leader who left the world forever changed